podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts Radio Network, kingofpodcasts.com.
A wolf in sugar daddy clothing. He promised them luxury, but delivered a nightmare.
We're all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the king of podcasts.
I'm old enough to remember the People's Court with Judge Joe Wapner, and we would have a story like this that would appear just like this. I can imagine Doug Llewellyn introducing the next case. So he went by the names of Daryl and Steve. He promised lonely women a life of opulence, a wealthy, charming Caucasian man, ready to be their exclusive sugar daddy on elite dating apps. But he was really a 38-year-old Malaysian con artist. The lure: expensive gifts, lavish dates, and a fantasy life. The trap: once in his grasp, the charm vanished. Coercion, extortion, betrayal. The total damage: more than $183,000 in Singapore currency, and a trail of shattered hearts. Let's get into the story that has come in. A 38-year-old Malaysian man being found guilty of luring women through dating apps by posing as a wealthy Caucasian sugar daddy, yes, catfish, before coercing them into sex and extorting more than 183,000 Singapore dollars. Incredible story. So here's what we got. Supposed catfishing: rich Caucasian sugar daddy was luring women into sexual exploitation and extortion schemes, which was going on in Singapore and Malaysia. It's an amazing story that I saw this week, and we got to talk about it. Rajwant Singh is 38 years old. He's been charged with 16 charges, found guilty on 4 counts, including cheating to obtain sex and extortion. Do not get in trouble in Singapore. Do not do that. Prosecutors describing his conduct as horrifying and deviant, and they're asking the court to impose 13 years imprisonment along with 15 strokes of the cane. Yes, if you didn't know, in Singapore, they give you the Singapore cane, a bamboo cane, where they will whip you with it, depending on how many times they think it's necessary. So you'll get the caning, then you'll go to jail. It's just like that. So this 38-year-old Malaysian man would go on dating platforms like Tinder and presented himself as a wealthy white man supposedly living aboard a yacht in Malaysia. He would arrange meetings, appear in person, pretending to be the man's driver, before assuming the false identity of the sugar daddy to pressure the woman into sleeping with him. Elaborate scheme. You know, this is one of those kind of things where I don't think I could go this much, but there must have been something about this guy that had some money on him to be able to orchestrate this kind of deal, because he had to go from Singapore to Malaysia to meet the women. And he had a good idea as to how he could talk his way into making a woman feel like he was this Caucasian sugar daddy in Malaysia. Now, then you would assume this was where he was the man's driver, he would say, and pressure the woman into sleeping with him. He would further threaten to release explicit videos of the victims unless they transferred money or provided other benefits. Now, one woman was promised $30,000 a month in return for a sexual relationship. Wow. So I don't know. Okay, this is amazing. $30,000 a month for any woman that thinks they're going to be able to make that kind of money as a sugar baby. What kind of mindset do you have? You're saying $7,500. We're saying $1,000 a day. I got to say it like this. I don't know how this woman didn't realize she was going to get screwed over. What kind of delusional thinking is there right there for a woman to go and think that, listen, I feel bad for her. I can't believe this happened to her. This was wrong. But still, right off the bat, she's already setting herself up for a trap because she's asking for so much. You have to understand, if you're going to find a sugar daddy, you're probably not going to make anything like that with them. If you're looking for maybe what, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, that's probably something more reasonable. Plus, a guy that you're also trying to meet up with, I don't know what she thought this was going to come from, but the kind of guy that she thought was going to be that rich doesn't sound like that would be a gift. There's no guy that's just going to give you $30,000 a month for sex. If you're going to be in Malaysia or Singapore, I am hard pressed to think that that guy couldn't find any woman he could want and, spend a little bit of money to go find a girl he can have sex with. I'm sure there's a lot of young women that are willing and able to go ahead and do anything with him. That's the other part. Why did he want to go ahead and do this right here? Because I imagine transactional relationships in Southeast Asia, if it's like Thailand, I'm imagining it's going to be like everywhere else. So he's in a foreign area and, American dollars go far. But I don't know. So the woman that was promised $30,000 a month in return for sex, she would travel to Penang in, I guess that's Singapore, sending explicit recordings and was coerced into sex work. And all the earnings that she made were given to Rajwant Singh. And on October 2020, she reported the offenses. Now, Rajwant was arrested in a joint operation with the Singapore Police Force and the Royal Malaysian Police. He confessed to his scheme on 16 statements, claiming he needed the money to support his family, though prosecutors noted he showed no remorse during the trial. And prosecutors would tell the court that he was in truth a serial rapist. His actions were morally depraved, sadistic, and malicious. And sentencing is being set up for January next month. That's the plan for this. It's an amazing story on how much you really can just try to get away with. Now, 4 charges of cheating for sex and extortion. Now, these offenses happened between 2018 and 2020. He was unemployed and living with his wife and children in Malaysia. Oh my goodness. So this guy's not even a single guy. This was something that he was just playing along and moonlighting as this supposed Caucasian sugar daddy. So unhappy in his relationship, unhappy in his marriage. I don't know. This is the idea that you have. You think is going to go ahead and support your wife and kids. There's just karma coming at you by thinking of this diabolical plan to think that you're going to be able to do this here. So now, into the story about who he was trying to portray. He called himself a Caucasian man named Mike, pretending to be successful and living on a yacht while offering victims money in exchange for sex and their companionship. So living on a yacht, the kind of idea of what a sugar daddy is, it's so stereotypical, but I want to know who the women are that really bought into his story. That was the other part. Now, victims were pressured into sending lewd pictures or videos of themselves before Rajwant invited them to come to Penang. So this guy, acting as the driver or acting as the assistant, the handler for Mike, he was setting up things to make sure he could prove or he could get positive assurance that these girls were willing and able to do whatever it takes to meet Mike. So he extorted them with the pictures and videos, saying this is going to be sent over to Mike. Incredible. But the thing is, he didn't even have to go to Sugar Daddy. He could have just said, well, I'll help you get work. The thing is, if this guy was going to be thinking a little bit depraved on doing this here, did he have to make it where it was a Sugar Daddy they were meeting and it was like this promise of money? Why didn't he say he offered a job or like some way for them to go ahead and make a living, an income? I don't know, some other way to do this and then vouch for them. But I guess he wanted to do this route because he was making sure that the women that were going to go ahead and approach were absolutely positively the women that were going to go ahead and, if they were willing to go ahead and have sex for the potential of making a lot of money from a supposed wealthy Caucasian sugar daddy named Mike living on a yacht, then they're willing to go ahead and send along some other material to entice this guy to say, yes, come to Penang to come visit me on my yacht. Okay. So This would enable him to determine whether to threaten the victim or appeal to them for money on compassionate grounds. Now, in some cases, he threatened to spread the lewd videos of the victims if they did not transfer money to him or gratify him in other ways. That's the other part. Did this guy think that the women had money? And where were they getting the money from? Because if you're trying to do something nefarious here, this guy obviously had no remorse, nor did he care what he did to the women. He had no consideration. It was totally sex and a domination kind of thing in his whole point too. Very extreme on his end. So he was able to go ahead and extort. This is comparison to $140,000 American, just so you know, in US dollars, $140,000, but 183,000 Singapore dollars from one of the victims to force her to have sex with him and to prevent him from spreading the lewd videos she had sent to him. Look, at this point, if the videos are going out there, it's like you're an OnlyFans model. I don't know what you're going to, for women to go ahead and say, okay, we want to do this thing here. The trap is set. And it's like when you are sending videos to someone that you really don't know that well, yeah, you could absolutely be subject to like, that's going to go out there and somebody's going to see it. Because the guy himself, you know, he didn't even think about, oh, I could take these videos and just put them up somewhere and sell them. He didn't want to even do that. No, he's going to extort the women. So this was also like a power controlling thing here, because in his relationship, he obviously was bitter. He was not happy. He was broke. He wasn't happy, I guess, with how women treated him. Maybe even his wife. So he's taking this out on these women who are greedy and sanctimonious, and they think, well, she would never get with me, but she'll get with this rich, white, Caucasian guy. That was the whole point of that too. But then also, this victim we just talked about before, she was also forced into sex work. This guy had a cattle call of guys that would have sex with her, and he pimped her out. So even another wrinkle to this mix. Embezzling, pimping her out. I mean, he forced her into prostitution. He got one so deep into this. Is this the one that asked for $30,000? Let's just play that scenario out. So the girl that thought she was going to make $30,000 a month off of Mike, and instead she got to the point where she was lured in by this guy, this 38-year-old Malaysian guy, broke, married with children, who offers nothing to the table to her. But she bought into his lie. And then she does get convinced that Mike wants the content because he wants to qualify her if he's going to bring her to where he is with a yacht. And this guy is the handler that's going to work this out and mediate this whole process. But then it's not just having sex with her. He would rape her and then force her into prostitution. This is truly inhumane. I mean, I don't even know where this guy thinks he could get away with this, but he did. Like, this is an incredible case. When he was charged, he was denying that he posed as a sugar daddy and extorted the victims. But then eventually would give confessions to how he committed the offenses, admitting he had sex with the victims, and saying he needed the money to cover family expenses. So I don't know how far he went into what he did. Now, is 13 years in jail and 15 strokes of the Rotan, is that enough punishment? That's a good question. I don't know. Listen, so they got him, according to what the counts are, they said it was 4 charges of cheating for sex and extortion. It's rape. So multiple charges of rape, extortion, and soliciting prostitution. So all that there in America, I think he would get thrown in the book. That guy would get 20, 30 years for what he did. We also don't even know the age of the young girl that actually got caught up in this as well. Because obviously I'm pretty sure that guy was going after young, impressionable women who might not have the right mindset, thinking they could just go ahead and make $30,000 a month off this guy. off of Tinder. Remember, she didn't even meet him on a sugar daddy site. It was off of Tinder. So on top of that, everything else, if you're going to go look for sugar daddies, you don't go to Tinder. They're not going to find that there. So what this guy thought, well, he was justified in approaching these women, getting sex from them for completely ulterior motives. And that's one thing if you wanted to go and get the girl to go to have sex with her. But it wasn't consensual. He forced himself on her. And not only that, extorted her for videos and pictures that he got from her before to make sure he had her in the trap. And then the lie, he was impersonating this sugar daddy, and then not only having sex with her and raping her in the process, also forcing her to get raped by other guys because she put her out as a prostitute, where it was also not consensual either, because of course she's not making any of that money. It was to pay off his or her debt to him, supposedly, whatever kind of embezzlement he was trying to get off of her. What an incredible scumbag this guy is. But he got away with it. I couldn't even believe that he was able to go and do this part. Another that was a victim to this guy was beaten until she was badly wounded. And then some could not even continue therapy due to the severity of their trauma. Yeah, these women are ruined. And this guy, the charges aren't enough. 16 offenses in total. And the prosecutors only want to get him for 13 years in jail and 15 strokes of the cane. Now, the prosecution called his actions horrific and perverse. Well, I think there's much more words much stronger you can use on that. But they plea bargained him down to 4 charges, cheating for sex and extortion. Who allowed this to happen? How was the defendant able to go ahead and get his deal down to this? Because I don't know. I mean, what would have been the highest charge this guy could have gotten? With 16 offenses here, what was it that he could have had? What he could have received as the final sentence? When we try to go ahead and analyze this, based on the serious charges he faced, it included cheating/extortion, sex-related offenses like sexual assault or rape, and pimping human trafficking elements. The most severe penalties in Singapore can be substantial. So what he could have actually been charged with was for rape on each count. It's a maximum punishment of 20 years in prison and a minimum of 12 strokes of the rattan, of the cane. Cheating and extortion could carry significant jail terms and fines, depending on the amount involved and the severity of the offense. So his total sentence could have been many years in prison. So we could have probably seen 30, 40 years, maybe even life. And potentially corporal punishment by the way of caning. But again, limited down and negotiated to something that was, I couldn't believe that it could be done like this. And by the way, this guy in court did not have legal representation. How in the world did this guy get away with this? The prosecutor, Jeremy Ben, Deputy Public Prosecutor Jeremy Ben, says that what Singh's victims had been forced to do was utterly debasing and disgusting. And his behavior against the women was particularly manipulative and deceptive. I can only imagine the kind of things that some guys will allow to have happened, that these kind of things can happen out there in Malaysia or Singapore. It's an incredible story. And it's so unfortunate for these young ladies to have got up on this. And this is not an isolated case. I want to make sure that women know out here that this kind of fraud is out there and leading to sexual assault and extortion. You need to go and know about this. And now some other stories that have also come out there in California. In Rancho Peñasquitos, California, a man named Syed Kaboli, ordered to stand trial on multiple felony counts, including forcible rape and torture, resulting in a prison sentence of 275 years plus if convicted. He met a victim on a rainy day, offering her a sugar daddy arrangement. Victim testified she was later held against her will, forced into non-consensual sex acts, and was restrained and beaten. She eventually fled naked by jumping from a second-story balcony. Levittown, Pennsylvania. Andrew J. Gallo, charged with multiple counts of rape by and causing impairment, strangulation, and drug charges. Accused of meeting women ages 17 to 30 through a sugar daddy website. Now, these are guys that actually met on sugar daddy websites, according to the cases here. Allegedly spiked their drinks with methamphetamines and other drugs to render them unable to consent before sexually assaulting them and leaving them bruised and sick. So another guy trying to go and get away with, putting the Mickey in the drinks, things like that. Another guy, Yaya Mali in St. Louis County, Missouri. Numerous charges he faces, including multiple counts of first or second degree rape, kidnapping, and sodomy. He used various dating websites to lure and rape at least 5 different women over a 2-year period. About another one in San Francisco, this is somebody we talked about before. Jaswant Singh Gill, Jason Gill, CEO of a capital investment firm charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Running a Ponzi scheme. We talked about this story a while back. Raising over $9.3 million from investors and fraudulently diverting and stealing over $5.5 million for personal use. If convicted, he faced up to 20 years in prison. We talked about that story as well. These kind of things happen. And I'm like, what is going on here? I remember that story. And I was like, going back to that, this is so common now. But I think we don't get much heard about this. And so women, I want you to just be clear and say, you know what, please watch out for yourselves and realize these kind of things can happen. And it's like, I don't want women to go and get caught up in this. Actually, this was back in August we talked about this. And let's go back in here. Oh no, this was another guy we had. Remember Joshua Mandel? Let's go back to that story and let's bring back a little bit of what I talked about at that point. Here's the story going back about Joshua Mandel and what he did earlier this year. Joshua Mandel, he is a film production accountant from Woodland Hills, California. He has been charged 6 counts of wire fraud for allegedly embezzling more than $1.9 million from independent film productions that have employed him. He managed cash flow, payroll, and expenses for various independent films. I tried to dig into what there was, if we could find out what those films were or who he's worked with. Couldn't really find out much about it. He had authority also over prepaid debit cards issued by Cachet Card, a common payment tool in the film industry, and access to production companies' bank accounts. Accountants skimming off the books. That's not, outside of the scope of what could happen. Very nefarious, but it's what the guy did with the money. Okay, it's what the part is. So between 2019 and 2023, it's also during COVID. It's crazy. Misappropriating funds by writing unauthorized checks, making unauthorized wire transfers, and move money into this Cachet Card account. The account was called Fun, which I also found out was one of his production company names as an LLC. Authorities say he used the funds for personal expenses where he was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, including porn stars, more than $129,000 to a woman he met through a sugar daddy website. In the 4 years, spent $125,000 on a sugar baby. Damn. Some of the expenditures, they had $24,000 marked where he was staying at various Las Vegas hotels and clubs, spent more than $12,000 at Louis Vuitton. So obviously it was for a bag or for some other accessories for this girl. I hope the sex was good, buddy. Okay, now, $100,000, what was it, $129,000 over a year? Yeah, that sounds a little more feasible. Again, we're talking about $10,000 a month. That's on the high end as well. But again, one of the women who could very well be the one that got caught up and got the biggest brunt of abuse from this guy. The guy we're talking about from Singapore, Malaysia. He was claiming she wanted $30,000, or that was the proposal, was $30,000 for sex. Women, I want you to understand this. Please take this clearly. You want a sugar daddy, you can't just expect that a guy is just going to think that your sex is going to be worth that much. You're not. I don't care. Maybe there's some guys that are delusional as well that think they're going to give you that kind of money for that. No. For sex? No, absolutely not. So you have to be reasonable in what you think is going to be what you're going to make. Okay? this whole idea of that you're going to make this kind of money, like $30,000 is a lot of money. I mean, there are people that still can't make $30,000 in a year. And you think you're going to be able to make that money and think that sex is going to be enough for you to get there? No. It's not. It's a pipe dream. It's not possible. It's not going to be that way. So for those that go on the sugar daddy sites, please tamp down your expectations, because this kind of thing right here, from the men that I'm referring to right now, this is not all men on sugar daddy sites. Let's make that clear. These are isolated cases, but there are plenty of examples. But I want to caution the women out there, tamp down your expectations and realize what you're getting yourself into. Okay, now guys, obviously, of course they want sex. Just like any other dating site. Of course there is. But it's what the guys are willing to go and do. And you need to realize, if you are asking for so much, do not ask for money that you can't cash. Like if you're trying to offer something that that it's just not the value. I know women are really willing to go and overvalue themselves and really think that between their legs and who they are, their personality, and what they bring to the table in terms of success, education, status, whatever it is, the way they look, their pretty privilege, that is not going to warrant $30,000 a month. You're rarely going to find any guys who are going to be able to do that. Again, what, the 0.1% of guys out there that are making over $100,000 a year? No. I mean, if I ever won one of those sites, it was always like, I'm never given that kind of expectation. And even if a girl that I just wanted to go along with what she was saying would be interesting to me, is like, okay, I could understand if I had that kind of income to play sugar daddy, I could see $5,000 a month. I could feasibly think $5,000 a month would be possible. And I think most women out there, if they had a sugar daddy that supplied them with $5,000 a month, whether the woman was working or not, I think they would be pretty satisfied. Am I wrong? I mean, there's a lot you could do with that. And for women that, they are able to go, they might have the work that they have in terms of being able to go and pay the bills and all. But think of that as discretionary income at $5,000 a month. Think of what you could go shopping with, how much you could spend going out lavishly. I mean, and that's if the guy is willing to go and do that and send you the money. And they're not even asking for anything. There's a girl out there that I saw earlier that she had some guy that was basically playing sugar daddy to her. And she was upset that he wanted to be around when he spent the money. And she was like trying to say, oh, no, just send me the money. You don't need to go and come along. Just send the money over. But then again, that's also rage bait out there. Trying to get guys to get all worked up and triggered over the fact this woman said she could do that. I don't believe it to be true, but I can never say never either. Now, getting back to the original point, this Malaysian man embezzling, asking for up to 189. How much was this again? Oh my goodness. 183,000 Singapore dollars, 140,000 American dollars. And the idea, the audacity of this mongrel, this Neanderthal, that he was able to go and get away with saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the girl to embezzle her, extort her for money, have sex with her anyway, with this guy, have sex with her anyway, and then human traffic her, sex traffic her, prostitute her, is truly above and beyond a grand depraved and debaucherous.